1987, 21 group at St. Joseph Hospital, Charlie Carpenter.
That's how many years I wandered around before I found Alcoholics Anonymous and sobriety. My name is Charlie Carpenter. I'm from Georgetown, Kentucky. I belong to the best group there is. If you don't think you don't belong to the best group, you better change it. George asked me to come up here tonight, and I'm glad that he did. He said he needed a substitute speaker, and I want to tell you right now, I'm not a substitute, because I'm not a speaker. But it is good to be here on this holidays. My story is about the same as a lot of you. I started out in Fleming County. At the age of 13, I lost my father. From there on, I was the man of the house, take care of my brother and my mother. I started to work and going to school at the same time. I worked for Grub and Bars on a farm for 50 cents a day. And when I went in to get paid on the Saturday night, this doctor said to me, he said, "That's a lot of money for a young fellow like you." And my tongue has always got me in trouble, and I said to him, "Pay me in pennies." And he said, "What do you want me pennies for?" I said, "Because you could jam every damn one." I quit. And I did. I went down to the grocery store where I'd been spending my $2 a week for groceries and asked a man for a job. And he told me if I'd go to school, he'd give me the job. So I went to work for him the morning before school, noontime, go in the night and stock, and continue on going to school. Well, that man finally lost his store, and I went to Maysville. I started to work at Kroger's at $16 a week. I went that morning at 7 o'clock and worked till 12, and the guy from A&P came up to me and he says, "Well, who put up this produce rack?" And I told him that I did. And he said, "What are you making a week?" And I told him, he said, "I'll give you 17 if you come down and go to work at A&P. I left Kroger's at 12 o'clock, went to work at A&P at 1 o'clock. I stayed at A&P until I was drafted in 42. I tried to jump the gun because this doctor that I was working for when I was a kid told me that I was going to be the first one drafted out of Fleming County, and he made good to that. So I was supposed to go in the Marines, and he never taken a blood test. So they had to hold me over in Fort Campbell for a few days, and my two buddies we enlisted with at the time, they went on to the Marine Corps, and I stayed Fort Thomas, and then I went on into the Army and out Camp Arkley, Texas. Through basic training and on back overseas. They say alcoholics are all cons. I wound up in Greenland of all the damn places in the world. We'd spent about 2 years there, and they had sent over 12 Red Cross, or 12 nurses, 3 Red Cross ladies, and a pimp. So, some of you people knew about that. This company commander that I had, that when I'd come in off of a mission, I was a night mess sergeant, and I had keys to the whole place, which it wasn't too big. And one of these nurses he was pretty well sweet on, asked him if she could use the supply room and the sewing machine. And he got a hold of me and he says, "Take Lieutenant so-and-so up to the supply room and let her use the sewing machine." He said, "You stay in there until she gets through and lock up the place and come on out." She left her lipstick behind. So when she left, I picked up her lipstick and I painted myself pretty good with it. Went on back down in the barracks and went to sleep. The next morning, that was his job to come in and wake me up. He seen that lipstick, and boy, he was furious. I was sent on the traveling list pretty damn soon. It took me about 30 days to get out of Greenland, but I did. I thought I was coming to the States, but I didn't make it. They sent me someplace else. But I was one of the first men to get back to the States, 1945. I was sent to Miami Beach on rehabilitation. And there's just about where my downfall started in my drinking career. I didn't drink up until then. When I came back from overseas, there's only 2 of us who landed in Gansa in Newfoundland. And the ceiling had closed in, and we got that little old train in from Prescott, Maine, all the way into Boston. But We got into Boston. We had to go from one railroad station to another one, and some gentleman come along, a large, big Cadillac, a rolled-up window in it. Of course, me being an old hillbilly, I never seen that before. And he said, I guess it's been a long time since you boys seen a good steak, because he's seen the vegetable salad on her blouses. We told him yes. He took us out for dinner and gave us a quart of whiskey apiece. We got on the train and on a Pullman, and we sat in the smoker for, seemed like me, for hours, but it wasn't that long. And I asked the conductor, I says, when are we going to get a berth? We've been up quite a few hours. And he says, we don't have any. And I politely told him I was going to hang a crutch around his neck if he didn't find one in a hurry. And he believed me, and he found one. He found two in a wax Pullman car. These girls just got out of a basic training in Long Island. Boy, you talk about having a ball. We had one. We chased every civilian out of the club car room and drank up all them little bitty bottles, you know. And they finally had the MPs to hold me in bed. We got into Atterbury, Indiana, and those girls kissed Guest Range and me goodbye, and we got lipstick from top of our head to bottom of our neck. And I woke up in a blotter factory. And there was nothing but women working in this blotter factory. Now, you people don't remember what a blotter was. That's the thing you used to blot your old ink pen with. And I asked them how I got there. He said, well, you couldn't walk when you were drunk. So I was able to get up and stagger out again. And I went down and went in the bar again, I guess. I don't know, remember. That was my first blackout. And I woke up with something the next morning. I remember one thing, getting on my knees and picking up my clothes and crawling the hell out the door. So I went into Atterbury, and some sergeant said to me, he says, Carpenter, when was the last time you were paid? And I said, June of 43. Well, it was June of 44, because I didn't sign a payroll too much. The next day, he said, you're in no position to go home now, but he says, I'll see if you can be able to go out tomorrow. Well, I seen more money than I ever seen in my life the next day, because I was getting overseas pay, flight pay, jump pay, and you name it, I was collecting and had a pretty fair rank. Come home and mind my own business. Didn't drink a thing at all while I was home for 15 days. Went to Miami Beach. First day I went on a discouraging tour. Met a beautiful lady. She had to have a penthouse. She invited me up there, and she drank Russian vodka and Southern Comfort mixed. Now, if you want a good trip in a hurry, that'll send you on one. So this lady here treated me awful nice, and I enjoyed every bit of it. It come time for me to ship out. I start back the old con again. This gal down at the desk is supposed to send our name in after we're there 15 days. I asked her for a date, and this gal I was going out with had a rental Cadillac. So she accepted because, boy, she had a face on her a mother would love, and there's a lot of women out in Miami Beach those days. I took her out and wined and dined her. Come in that night, and she says, when am I going to see you again? I said, hell, I'm shipping tomorrow. You put my name on the books. She said, I'll arrange that. I'll send you to dental. Well, that lasted another 15 days before they caught up with me. But I told her that I had a mother and a sister out there, which I didn't have either. But they finally caught me, sent me to Staten Island, New York. And that time I was supposed to come back to Louisville for treatment. But they were so hacked off at me, they sent me to Staten Island, New York. So after about a month there, I asked them for light duty. That was the largest receiving hospital for overseas veterans in that time. And they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to go to quartermaster because I'm a meat cutter by trade. I said, okay, and I went down to quartermaster, and I was getting all the crummy details there were because everybody that was down there was been stateside. They'd never been overseas, and they didn't like too much of an overseas veteran being there. Of course, my rank didn't mean nothing because I was on temporary duty. One day, the sergeant said to me, he says, Carpenter, he says, take 2 German prisoners and a hind quarter of beef and a fourth quarter of beef, 2 meat blocks over to rec hall. Well, it turned out to be the 1st and 2nd Service Command and all the rest of Big Wheels, the Salvation Army, and Red Cross, and all the dietitians and mess officers, and hell, you name it, were there. Well, this bird is supposed to put on the exhibit to tell them how to cut meat and where the good cuts come from, where the ribeyes, T-bone steaks, shells, top round and all that. He showed up a half an hour late. And he walked out on the stage and he raved and romped and he says, I want to know the man who's responsible for putting this meat on the meat blocks. And the German prisoner didn't speak English, so I had to step out. And the guy, I believe firmly today, was an alcoholic because he was covering up his own tracks for an excuse. Because that meat fell off my shoulder. It didn't fall off my shoulders. It fell off the German prisoner's shoulders if anybody would throw it on a meat block. But it was all over with. He called me back out on the stage, and the 1st, 2nd Service Command, the mess officers and dietitians up there and had my pictures taken. 3 days later, I got a picture of that. Well, I never thought too much about it. Show you how lucky a person can be and the chances he's had in his life. I happened to walk up on the platform, and we're feeding about 10, 12,000 people there at a time for patients. And he says, Carpenter, he says, General wants to see you. And I says, no, General wants to see me. The mess officer said to me, he said he does. So he took me up there and I talked to him, and Captain Sipkoff was the adjutant. And he said, you're taking over quartermaster tonight at 6 o'clock. Well, I signed requisitions and I never seen before in my life, and I don't know today what I ever signed, but all those people there are shipped out. They went to Korea. They thought they're going to be safe there. Well, I wound up being the last person discharged from Howard General Hospital. They flew me down to Atterbury, and I came back the same job I had with the Army, except the Army had switched over to the VA. And I was head of quartermaster as a purchasing officer. I went from $17 a week to 70 hours a week to $13,000 a year. Boy, I'll tell you, that was hard to take. I don't think I was qualified for the job. I stayed with the government 2 years. Meanwhile, I'd married a dietitian. She was the chief dietitian there. She came down to my office, but this was during when the Army was there, and that's when rationing. I don't know if any of you in here is old enough to remember the rationing or not, but we had tar stamps, we had sugar stamps, nylon stamps, shoe stamps, coffee stamps, meat stamps, you name it. So I asked my secretary, I said, what's all these books for? And she told me they were rationing stamps. Well, hell, I'd give them out. I was a pretty popular guy. Anybody wanted a free stamp, I gave it to them. But then I met this dietitian. She bought a quart Southern Comfort down to the office. That was my first experience with Southern Comfort. We drank and I wound up getting engaged and getting married the following week. And that was a mistake with her, a mistake with me, and 4 lovely kids. As my drinking was pretty well under control then, I was having 4 or 5, maybe 6 drinks a week. And I was sitting in a barber shop getting a haircut, and the guy walked in dressed in a black suit, nylon, could have been silk, I don't know, but he had a pair of alligator shoes on. He walked over and he talked to the barber. The barber looked at me and he walked over to me and he says, I understand you're looking for a house. And I said, yes, because there's mostly cold water flats up there those days. And he took me over and showed me his home. I'd never been into a house in my life as nice a home as that one was. My ex-wife still has that home today. Everything was in that house, including silverware, linens, even had a Bendix washing machine, which you never heard of in those days. Hand paper on the walls, Oriental rugs on the floor. And he said, you can have it for X amount of dollars. And I said, I don't have that much money. He said, how much can you get? And I started talking to people, and I wound up getting the money next morning at 10 o'clock. I had the money to buy that house. I found out later he was a manager of a tavern on the Green in New York, and he was told he had 24 hours to get out of the country or get a pair of concrete boots. See, I fell in luck again by getting that home for almost nothing. Things went on to be pretty good for me. I quit the government job, went in the meat business. It was very successful. OPA days were still on. But then my wife had a nice home. She had a good automobile. We had 2 kids. She had money. She had a nurse. She had a maid. We were was second person on the island to have a television set. I was playing ball, and I was bowling, and I was drinking. And I was coming in 11, 12 o'clock at night, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, going to Washington Street to pick up meat. Today I can realize that I had a good wife and I had 4 lovely kids, but that wife did not have a father. She did not have a husband. My kids didn't have a father because I was too busy with myself and too busy with my alcohol. See, alcohol robbed me of just about everything I had because it had taken over and controlled my life. My biggest fear was alcohol. Well, after we got the divorce, I went to work for a dry cleaning outfit. Meanwhile, I went into nightclub business too. Was very successful in that until I got into the airplanes and speedboats and the women. And it don't take a fool long to lose his money. My wife divorced me. I thought I was free. She got everything, which I was happy. I went to work for a laundry company. Did very good on that. Got another little bar. Since I had a following of when I was in the nightclub business for quite a few years, that place went overnight and I sold it, bought another one, sold it, and bought another one, sold it. See, I use people. Used them very bad. Then I bought a nice cocktail lounge. That's where I was going to be happy with. You had to have a suit and tie in order to get into the place, or a sport jacket. One night, cops come running up to the up to the bar and started waving me to run. I didn't have nothing to run for. I stayed there. My ex-wife had got a warrant out for me for non-support, but she had agreed, and we got the divorce, that I'd pay her no alimony if I'd give her everything I had. Well, I went in front of the judge the next morning. That was the first time I was ever in jail. They did take me to jail that night. And this one police officer waited about 6 hours till I went to night court. And he told the judge, he says, this man will be in domestic relations court tomorrow morning. He's a good citizen. He's a good man. And he said, I'll personally guarantee you and put 18 years of my life on the force that he'll be there. That man had faith in me. An awful lot of people in this world had faith in me in those days. Well, I showed up the next morning and I got hit for $500 a week alimony. And I took the geographical care. I sold out and moved to Kentucky. Got the alimony reduced. And I had said then I'd never get back in the whiskey business again. You know, I was in Kentucky here for about 3 weeks. And I bought a liquor store down on Dewey Street. And about 6 months later, I bought another one. I wound up with 3 of them. Then all hell started falling into me in 1963. I started in a bunch of operations, about 9 of them, and through the years of the 60s, and I don't remember them. My drinking kept progressing, but yet I was able to work. Until about 65 or 66, I had an operation on the rectum, and they cut the sphincter nerve. When that happened, I was like a goose every time I walked. Luckily, later on, they did a repair job on me, but I'd give up, and I tried to commit suicide, didn't have the guts. I tried to drink myself, didn't have the guts to do that. I even would buy a case of whiskey, go to one motel and park my car, and call a cab and take the case of whiskey and go to another motel, because I wanted to die. I wanted to die drunk. I couldn't face reality. I couldn't face nobody. But somewhere along the line, and I say it today as my higher power, was somebody would find me and take me to the hospital. I was in the VA 53 times, and out of that I would say 25 of them was to dry me out. Not once I was ever told I was an alcoholic. Not once I ever told I had a drinking problem. When I'd go through one operation, I'd ask a doctor, "Is already take a drink?" And he said, "Yeah, as long as you don't overdo it." But one drink never done nothing to me. I couldn't stand the empty glass. I couldn't stand a full glass. So when I finally seen that I was getting more trouble and I'd married again, this second wife, I got a divorce. I guess this is when I became to believe. When I was laying up there in the hospital bed, the x-ray technician walked up to me and said, "Charlie, Florence divorced you." And I said, "That's good." When I got out, she had gotten everything. I'd got a $1,000 check. I went to this lawyer to collect the check, and he said to me, he said, "My fee is $700. And I said, "Who hired you?" He says, I was appointed. I said, that check is not too big, is it? And he says, no. And I said, well, you know what you can do with it. And I walked out the door. I walked into the bank. I talked to Mr. O.A. Bakers, and I'll mention his name. And after that, I walked over and seen a loan officer and told him I needed $1,000. And he said, your wife has been in here and told everybody that you were broke, you didn't have any money, but not to lend you nothing. But he said, Charlie, I'm giving you $1,000. Because he said, you've always had good credit and you paid your bills. And he said, if I have to pay it myself, you've got it. That day, it started me thinking, and I went, rented an apartment, never put the sheets on the bed. That next morning, I went to the VA and asked them to go through the alcoholic program. And they said, you're not drinking, you're not drunk. And I said, no, but my mind is screwed up because I've been kicked out of Eastern State and told me I had a medical problem and I didn't have an alcohol problem. And I said, I know alcohol has done something to my life. Because I don't remember a lot of things I've done, what I did. And I told this man about me driving a bush hog. My wife had took all the keys, my trucks and the tractors, about 7 miles one way in the snow and zero weather, and hooking a bush hog up in behind a tractor to go get a case of whiskey. Now, if that's not insanity, I don't know what in the hell is it. I remember one night getting up and looking for that bottle of whiskey, and I moved a whole bin of hay, which is about 400 bales, and I never found that bottle. That's the only worry I had those days, not having that drink in the morning and not having another drink for the next day. I had whiskey hidden tobacco rows, the corn rows, all over a 114-acre farm, in the tobacco centers. I had it hid any place you could dream of, but I'll tell you one thing about it, she could smell out those bottles, and God, she'd find them and break them and pour them out. And I'd go right back and get another case. I don't know what I'd done if I didn't have a key to a liquor store. I'd probably wrote bad checks or robbed or done anything, because whiskey became part of the necessity of my life. I had to have that drink. I'd been in the DTs. I'd had convulsions. But yet again, when I got on a drunk, I knew where I was going and where I was heading. And I had to have that drink. But after I finished the program in the VA, I learned something about myself. I learned that I never fitted in no place. I never had what you call friends. I never had a family. I never knew what love was. The only love I ever knew was like a kiss for uptown shopping, for downtown business. I never fitted no place until I found the group of Alcoholics Anonymous. I stayed a year and a half, attending one meeting a week, sober. I'd say dry, not sober. I didn't participate. And you know what happened? I graduated and got drunk. Back into Harrison Sanitarium. Out of Harrison, stay sober another year, back in again. And meanwhile, I was coming in and going in and out of AA. But you people never gave up on me. Finally, in 1975, 76, I was working in a store, and my partner later to come to be Dr. Young walked in. He said, Charlie, he said, you look awful bad. He said, what's the matter? And I said, I must have the flu. Because when I was drinking, I had the flu a hell of a lot. So he said, let me give you a prescription. You go home and go to bed. He gave me a prescription. I went down on Main Street and had it filled. And I reached up on the shelf and picked up a bottle of blackberry brandy. That's where you say alcohol is cunning and baffling. I found that bottle of blackberry brandy a couple of years back, and I'd taken about that much out of it. But I don't know what that drug was he gave me. But nevertheless, I was in a blackout for a full week. I wrote a contract, had it closed. I spelt words that I never could spell normally. Don't even remember selling the place after I come to myself and I was scared to death. I checked in here to St. Joe's Hospital for 2 days. With the grace of God, I'm here tonight, and I'll have 11 years sobriety in if I stay put until February the 3rd, 1987. Once I started putting something into this program, took that first step, admitted I was powerless over alcohol, that my life became unmanageable. I didn't give a lip service anymore. I take that step every morning. And I have a choice today when I get up in the morning to drink or not to drink. And I chose this morning not to drink. You people tell me to get involved. I got involved. 12-step work, making coffee. We've got our own club in Georgetown, which a lot of you know it. I played a little bit of part in that. Worked hard to get a hold of it and get it paid for. I have worked on 12-step calls and I've babysitted. I've got more out of it than they did because it helped me to put me back and remember where in the hell I was at those years back. There's no way I can bring back yesterday. There's no way I can bring back those 4 lovely kids that I left behind and those 2 wives. It was my fault and nobody else's. I blame my mother-in-law. I blame my wife. I blame the world. I blame God. You see, when I was brought up, my mother taught me about God, but she taught me about a fearing God. I can remember one time she caught me with a girl and she washed my mouth out. I didn't have a damn thing to do with my mouth. But she told me I'd die and go to hell. Every time I do something wrong, that's what had happened. But I found out today I have a loving God, somebody I can talk to, somebody I can reach up to every night. I don't ask for a heck of a lot today. I just thank him for everything I've got because I'm here only one day at a time. And that one day means more to me than anything in the world because today I can see the beauty through you people and the love. I can see the birds, which I never stopped to look at before. And I can see love that I never had before because you people have given it to me. See, AA doesn't need me, but boy, I sure as hell need AA because I can stay sober with you people, but I cannot stay sober alone. Since I have been in the program and worked with some of the people around me, I'm beginning to get to know myself for the first time in my life. I'm beginning to get just a little bit of security, enough to where I can make a decision. And before, I was never able to make a decision. Today, I make them, and I make them right now and then. Before, I could lay down beside her work and let it go to hell. Today, I can't wait to get it done. Before, I didn't care where I paid a bill or not. Today, as soon as that bill comes in, I get it out. And I owe every bit of that to you people in this program. We're going through the holidays now, which are tough. You probably newer members. But remember one thing, regardless how much sobriety we've got, we're only one way away from a drink. I know today that I'm just that far from being another drunk. But it's darn good to be in these meetings. When I'm up here tonight, I'll be up here making an ass out of myself, and I would be out there on the street making an ass out of myself drunk. Because you people give me a new life to lead. As long as I attend these meetings, work these steps, and believe in you people and believe in my higher power, which I choose to call God, I can make it one day at a time. I don't set any goals anymore because goals will be made to break. Because I set goals when I was young. I reached the top of that ladder. There was no place to go except down. That's a long fall and a hard climb. I would say this is the first time in my life that I really know in the last few years I've had a little serenity, a little serene, and as happy as any person can be. Everything hasn't been a bowl of roses. You're not going to find it that way. We're going to go out and find these problems, as many as we had before. But today you can and face up to them and hit them head on. The nice thing about this program, when I drive down the road and see 2 or 3 other AA members that I pass, boy, that's a great feeling because you know something? They know where I've been. They have walked in my walk, and I've walked in their walk. That's the best feeling in the world that you can have. And I stay close to AA members. And I tell you one thing, there's no dumb alcoholics. John Barleycorn made us in pretty rough shape because we trusted him. He was our crutch. He was our love. He was the only fear we had. He robbed us of everything we had because the only fear we had then, for me personally, was that I had to have that bottle sitting alongside of me. I let my children go, I let my family go, and everybody else go so I could have that bottle. And thank God today that fear has left me. I only heard one of our members the other night say on one of our New Year's parties, he was in a roadblock. A couple of years previous from that, he was picked up for drunken driving on Christmas Eve and locked in jail. And he said when he got out, he enjoyed his cop stopping him. Because the cop says to him, he said, I know that everybody has one drink on New Year's. And he says, Turkey, I've been to 24-hour AA meeting. He said, you're wrong. And he said the cop turned around and walked away. See, I don't have to worry about those blue lights anymore myself. I don't have to worry about that guy in a uniform coming to my house. I don't have to get up tomorrow morning where I park my car or who I hurt. I have made amends to people close to me and close to my family. But I think the biggest amends that I'm making when I walk down the street sober and people sees that change in me and my family sees a change in me. See, I had no communication with my 4 kids for years until finally one day my daughter wrote a letter and says, I think these words are hard to put on writing, but she says, you are a grandfather. The day she and I are close, she called me the night before I left. I hope someday that I have the same kind of communication as the other 3. But I was told from my sponsor, Charlie, when I heard from him, I cried like a baby. And he said, don't try to buy her love. Don't tell her nothing. And that's the way it's been. I do send her Christmas present, my granddaughter, but she doesn't know anything. And that sponsor is something that I think is the most important thing in the world. I have 2 of them. I can talk to them and they understand me. They trust me. And I know that's where it's going to go. So that's the way I got sober, by getting these 2 fellows talking to them for 3 hours one night from 1 o'clock to 4 in the morning. I told him things and garbage has built up in me and resentments had built up in me that nobody in the world knew except the man above. But I unloaded everything on them and they listened. Today I still unload and I ask them for advice because they were there when I needed them and they're there today. And I hope I can be there sometime when somebody needs me. And I thank you all very much. I wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We're going to have a New Year's party at 12 o'clock, ham, gravy, bacon, biscuits. You're all welcome to come. Thank you.